Welcome to the Be All You Can Be MSc, the podcast dedicated to empowering Army Medical Service Corps officers and professionals like you. I'm your host, Stephanie Moore. On today's episode of the Be All You Can Be MSc podcast, we have a very special guest from the Army-Baylor University Program in Health and Business Administration. So what is this program exactly? It's located at Fort Sam Houston, San Antonio. It is a traditional 2-year track consisting of didactic phase and a residency phase. The initial is a 12-month didactic phase at Fort Sam Houston, where Army-Baylor students complete 57 hours of graduate coursework towards a Master's of Healthcare Administration awarded by Baylor University. The alternatively is a 78-hour program applied to a joint MHA MBA degree from Baylor University. The secondary 12 months is followed by an administrative residency at a designated residency location. Now, this program is actually deep in AMED history. It originally started in 1947 as a 3-month course in the Department of Administration at the Medical Field Service School, and now has morphed into the program that we see today. So here to talk to us about this program of over 60 years of history is our Assistant Professor and Program Executive Officer, MAJ Tiara Walz. She is a 70 Alpha. So Tiara, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your Army experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a really fun career. I've been in for almost 15 years, which is hard to believe. I commissioned in the Medical Service Corps in 2009 as a Medical Service Corps officer, so 70 Bravo. I had joined ROTC at the University of Dubuque in 2005 solely because I was friends with so many people in ROTC. So maybe like many of us, I did not actually have plans to join the Army, but I grew up a military brat, and the school that I went to, tiny college in Iowa, was a great school at recruiting people who were military dependents overseas. So I grew up, my dad was an engineer, and I happened to be stationed in Hohenfels when I graduated high school. And this college came to visit, and it seemed that some of my friends were going there. And so I went, and I ended up getting sucked into ROTC because I was doing physical fitness with my friends. And college was expensive, and I thought it could be really fun to join as a Medical Service Corps officer. So I knew even as a freshman in college that I wanted to become an MSc, and I'm very fortunate that's how things played out. I started my career at Fort Hood in 1st Cavalry Division, 1st Team. I served the stereotypical assignments that they tell you to do. It was pretty textbook my first few years in the military. So I was a platoon leader in 2nd Brigade, and then I was an executive officer. I deployed to Iraq for Operation New Dawn as the XO of Charlie Company in 15th BSB. So we ran a level 2 aid station in Bakuba, Iraq. And upon coming home, conversations started to happen of what I was going to do next. There was mumblings in my battalion that I was going to be the S4. And if anyone's been in that situation, it can be scary. I did not want to necessarily go logistics. I also didn't want to stay in that unit. And so my commander did me a huge favor and told me to go find a job. So I went to the hospital. I found a job in operations and was actually able to secure an interpost transfer. So I worked in ops as the deputy operations officer for Kerdamsi at now Fort Cavazos. And then I was offered command at Fort Benning, now Fort Moore. During this time, I'd kind of figured out what a 70 Alpha was. I decided that it was what I wanted to pursue if I was going to stay in. So I knew that command time was essential for me to go on in my military career. So I started mapping out what the next few years would look like. If I was going to stay in, I knew I wanted to apply for Army-Baylor because that is how you become a 70 Alpha. You need an MHA from an accredited university in order to designate as a 70 Alpha. And command ended up being the best job I've ever had. So I gladly applied to Army-Baylor, and that was the decision point where I decided I was going to make a career out of this. So I went to Army-Baylor, got the MHA, got the MBA. I also became a fellow in the American College of Healthcare Executives. I had an incredible residency stationed at Fort Carson. And this was when I really fell in love with becoming a healthcare executive. As a healthcare executive and an administrator in the Army, we get to work with the TRICARE benefit for our beneficiaries. We get to run hospitals, support the warfighter and their families and our nation's retirees. And I fell in love with this while I was at Evans Army Community Hospital. So we're involved in all of the aspects of healthcare delivery, and I've been a clinical support division chief, a managed care chief, and then decided to apply for LTHET again to pursue my PhD. So the other thing that I fell in love with was once I left Army-Baylor, I knew I wanted to go back and teach. And the route to do that was to apply for LTHET again to do my PhD. So my DCA supported my endeavor, even though it was a little early in my career, and I applied for LTHET and was accepted. So from 2019 to 2022, I attended Oregon State and got my PhD in public health and health policy. And now I am back. So I'm back as an assistant professor and an XO, the XO for the program. I teach health insurance, health policy, and organizational health and behavior. And I absolutely love it. I also love being back at the Medical Center of Excellence because Army medicine truly starts here with education. So it's been incredible so far.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. And I'm excited to talk to you today about Army-Baylor Program because you have now the perspective as an instructor and also as a student. So I think we'll get a nice 360-degree view from you. So why don't you tell us in your own words, what is the Army-Baylor MHA MBA program and what does it encompass to include, like, what do you get from the program?
Yeah, so it's one of a few Baylor contracted programs that we have down here at the Medical Center of Excellence. And our mission, I'll just read our mission and vision because I think everything that we do is very well anchored in these. Our mission is to inspire, educate, train, and develop graduates for management, administrative, and leadership positions within the federal healthcare sector, thereby enhancing the readiness of U.S. military forces and improving the health of our active duty service members, family, retirees, and veterans. And then our vision is to be the top graduate program in health and business administration, globally known for developing leaders who drive profound change within the federal healthcare system. And I would say that the longer I'm here, the more that I realize how well we do that. We have a unique mission set in that we are an MHA program, and you have that option to do an MHA and an MBA. But we, unlike other normal MHA programs in the US, we place people. We know who's coming into our program. We place them into military and civilian residencies, and then they go on to drive profound change in the federal health sector. And this is incredible because it creates the sustainable cycle where we go out and we're still in the federal system and we are driving change. We are running healthcare facilities across the military, and then we teach it and train it and we send students back to the program. And I think that we are really unique in that aspect. We, like you said, you gave a great bio. We've been around since 1947, and that came out of a need that we discovered during World War II, that we needed support. We needed administrative officers to run our medical centers, our military hospitals, our caches, and our clinics. And so that's what we've been doing ever since. And I'm really proud of that legacy. So we have over 2,600 alumni. Our program graduates go on to lead as chiefs, commanders, and strategic planners in military medicine and policy. And then when they get out, they go on to be CEOs, program directors. They lead hospital systems and academic programs across the country. It's amazing. We're a top-ranked national accredited program. We're currently number 12. You can earn a dual degree. You get a 1-year residency at either a top-tier civilian or military healthcare facility. So that's a really neat opportunity. And our peer network, our cohort model that I already discussed, and like our alumni network is just really robust and cool. There's just a constant exchange of best practices and mentorship that happens, and it's free. So military officers get to take time off to still maintain their salary, and it's just time and service, and they get to come here and be part of the Army-Baylor program for 2 years. It's just an incredible opportunity.
So I'd be curious, and this is because I have 2 master's degrees. The first one I did on my own, and the second one I did naval postgrad. But I was reading, and as you explained, the first 12 months is the didactic. That seems very intense. So I'd be curious, what is that experience like, and how is it broken out over that 12 months from a learning perspective?
Yeah, so our didactic year is for the MHA, it's a little lighter. So if you come in for the dual program and that's something you want to pursue, it's definitely busier, especially towards the fourth and fifth semesters. But our didactic year is divided out into 5 semesters. That fifth semester is a bit shorter. There's some MBA seminars that take place during that time, but the first 4 semesters are all about 10 weeks, so more quarters, but we call them semesters. And each professor, we all work together to ensure that our curriculum aligns in a way that is not overly burdensome for the students. And so we're implementing higher level learning initiatives, and we integrate course concepts and learning objectives where we can. And so it might be that you are assigned a certain group for that first semester, and that's the same group that you're in across all the different subjects. So you all can sync your schedules together so you can work and study outside of class time. We do try to give 4-day weekends where we can between semesters so that students can recover. But it is rigorous. It's definitely rigorous. We have high expectations, but I think the faculty works very closely together to ensure streamlined educational opportunities for the students. We try to space out our deliverables, and there's a lot of presentations, a lot of higher level learning focus where we're doing presentations and group projects and case studies and things like that. So there's a lot of hands-on. We do field trips, we do a lot of things like that. And so everything's kind of interrelated. So it's busy, but I think it's incredibly fulfilling, and we are cognizant of how rigorous the program is. I would also add to that the caliber of the people that we admit to our program demand that high level education. And that's something that I've learned more so being on the professor side of the house and having taught at other programs. Our military officers come in and they do their homework and they stay on top of their deliverables. And so it really pushes us as professors to make sure that we are giving them the most cutting edge, updated curriculum that we can.
I appreciate you breaking that down a little further because, like you said, it can sound daunting, but when you hear the breakdown, the fact that it's broken it out in semesters, that you are working with the other professors to make sure that things are building on each other progressively, and that you're also mindful of those deliverables and when they are required, I think makes it a lot less daunting to hear. But for those that haven't had a master's degree program yet, it is different than your undergrad because it even though you're still individually graded, you do have a lot of team effort and team requirements where you're leaning on others. So that gives you the ability, I think, to leverage your strengths and your weaknesses equally. So that's why I wanted you to kind of delve a little
Yeah,
bit deeper in that.
you said that so well. You said that so well. So I appreciate it. And one more point to that too is since you helped me shift to more of the target audience of applicants, I will say that most of our student cohorts are coming out of command, and that can be an adjustment for people. You are in charge of a group of soldiers, you are running things, you have a lot of responsibility. And so that transition to sitting in a classroom and being a student and only being responsible for yourself, I'm sure you and I can speak to that too, having gone to graduate school, but that can be a difficult transition for some. But it's rewarding and really worth it because they bring such a wealth of knowledge and experience to the classroom.
Oh, absolutely. I do not regret my late night studying
Right.
because of the ultimately the outcome and also the education. So I think education at the end of the day, it opens your aperture, it opens your ability to not just think strategically, but also be a strategic problem solver. So on
Yes.
that second year of the residency, I know you mentioned that you might either be a civilian medical treatment facility or a military, but what's the requirement when you go to that residency 12 months? Like, are you put in a position where you're in charge of things and have deliverables, or what happens during that 12 months?
Yeah, so the residency experience is very cool because it's multifaceted, and also we have a preceptor at each site. So we maintain relationships with preceptors at top tier civilian and military facilities. And so the advisor, you have an advisor when you're in your didactic year, and that advisor sticks with you for your residency year. And so we work closely with the preceptor, and we see it as a triangle framework. So there's the preceptor, the advisor, in the student. And your responsibility, your main responsibility for residency is to create what we call the portfolio. And so the portfolio consists of three of your largest and most impactful performance improvement projects. And also you report on a best practice, which is one of those innovative things that the facility is doing well that you think could be implemented as a best practice and scaled at other institutions. And so this is a great way for us to exchange ideas of how to improve efficiency and effectiveness in the healthcare system. And the portfolio is something that they work on throughout the year. So they go to residency and they are responsible for doing rotations to really understand how the facility works. So they spend time in the administrative sectors, they go through the clinical sections, they can watch surgeries, they see how things really work from the ground up in a facility. And that preceptor, who is usually the COO, which is our DCA equivalent in the military, they are a strategic leader and thinker. And so they're helping advise the student, the resident, on where they should be doing rotations, what project ideas might exist for them to help improve operations at the hospital, and things like that. So it's really well managed in that way. So the student can talk to the preceptor, they can talk to the advisor. The preceptor ultimately says, this is a good idea with that advisor. And so they're working on, I would say the two main things are those rotations and the portfolio. And that is something that the advisors, teams of faculty at Army-Baylor will grade, and then they will ultimately finish that and then be able to graduate at the end of that second year.
That's great to hear because then they're actually already kind of getting to take their education from that first 12 months and see, okay, what can I now do with this education? It almost feels like it's like a trial run for them to be a healthcare administrator.
Yes, that's absolutely what it is. And I didn't say it before, but the main deliverable at the end of their didactic year is an oral board. And so they sit in front of a team. It's a mix of faculty, potential preceptors, and alumni, leaders from Baylor University, leaders from hospitals across the country. And we basically ask them questions. It's an oral examination on what they've learned in their first 12 months. And so they can then use that and take that into their residency.
Well, thank you for unfolding the program for us more so we have a better sense of the journey that the students go on. So, how do students apply to the Army-Baylor program or potential future students?
Yeah, so you can apply through the LTHET Milper message that comes out every year. And I know that can have slight differences depending on what branch you are, but that's predominantly how the Army does it, makes up most of our cohorts. We do have applicants from the VA. At times we've had the Department of Defense. We're working on getting that going again, but we also have Coast Guard, Navy, and Air Force that come to our program, which actually, side note, that multi-service component and all the different healthcare backgrounds really make it an additional enriching learning environment. So the LTHET Milper message for us, for MSCs, comes out usually around December. So you apply through that LTHET message. We're on the list of programs, Army-Baylor, MHA, MBA. And so you have to satisfy all the prerequisites for your service in your branch. Army requirements, you need to be Captain's Career Course complete, ILE if you're a major. You need to have between 5 and 13 years of service. For MSCs, command is usually something that most MSCs will apply while they're in command. That's the trajectory. You have to have time on station requirements that can be waiverable. That's things you work with your consultant on. And then program specific requirements would be your GRE, having your GPA, figuring out what you're going to do for AOC designation, and then you submit all of your transcripts, and then you'll do a couple of letters of recommendation and traditionally apply that way through our program. But MSCs can apply. 70 Bravos are the main audience. We are a 70 Alpha producing program, but I also want to point out that we have hotels and kilos and deltas and foxtrots and any other AOC that you might be aspiring to become, we do offer slots for those positions as well. We also have comptrollers. So other clinical specialties can also apply. So we usually will have a pharmacist, a dentist, allied sciences can apply, veterinarians, family medicine docs, physicians, surgeons. We have a lot of different people in our cohorts, which again add to that enriching learning experience.
I appreciate you sharing really the broad scope of this opportunity, because when the long term health and education training programs come out, a lot of them are very specific to AOCs or cores. And so it's nice to know that there is a program out there that's for a broad range of our service members. And it also highlights, I think, how important aspects of healthcare administration are in every field in the Army Medical Department.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'd be curious then, what insights does an officer gain that they can bring back to the force with them? And I'm going to add a little piece on the end there. If you could separate both military treatment facility versus an operational assignment.
Ooh, okay. So when I give my pitch for our program, when we talk about insights that an officer gains, I like to think about it in three categories initially. So there's connections, opportunity, and then the challenge. So for connections, you get to be part of a cohort that become lifelong military friends. They're professionals. We have committed faculty and staff and alumni that you get exposed to, and you get to be part of this for the rest of your career. And that's been very fulfilling for me as a student. And now I see it as a professor. There's a lot of opportunities in our program. You're obviously getting an incredible education that's free and also top ranked in the country. You get opportunities to participate with other academic institutions for case competitions. There's opportunities to be exposed to guest speakers and strategic thinkers across military medicine and beyond. There's also opportunities for professional certifications, obviously the degrees that you obtain, and third, the challenge. So this is relevant instruction. It's rigorous, and it's a serious discussion on healthcare. And both on the civilian and military sides, we have a lot of challenges in front of us that we're going to need to tackle. And so we need people who are passionate about these topics to come through our program and go on and really just make an impactful difference in the field. So students who graduate from our program understand on a fundamental level how to run hospitals. So they learn from the ground up what the healthcare landscape is in the United States. And then they also learn through the lens of an Army officer what enabling medical readiness for the force actually represents. And so if you're working in a hospital, you're really focused on managing that hospital and efficiently delivering the healthcare benefit, which I think is incredibly important because we're directly supporting the health of the force. If you're in a more operational job, you could be doing that to the equivalent. It might just be scaled to a different unit, but you're also supporting the health of the force. And we have to be able to have a healthy force so that we can fight and win wars at the fundamental level. And obtaining these degrees with the backgrounds that our students come in with makes them extremely competitive when we're competing for AIM positions, but also beyond our military careers. So we're highly sought out both within the military and beyond. And our robust alumni network reminds us of that every day because our students have a foundation in economics, quantitative and statistical analysis, health insurance, policy, health law. We teach classes in ethics, organizational behavior theory, and leadership. They also have a foundation in finance, health IT, project management, Lean Six Sigma. You really can't get this education anywhere else in the military. And so I've seen it as a student and now on the faculty side when people in units know that they have a spot open that an Army-Baylor grad could potentially fill, they want the Army-Baylor grad in that job. It carries a lot of weight. So our connections are incredible, and people who know the education quality that we provide definitely want us in their units.
Well, I appreciate the three categories and how you were able to break that down. And one of the things that you mentioned in the challenges was the knowledge of policy. And I think beyond just the medical treatment facilities, a knowledge of policy really is a must if you intend to serve on the joint staff, if you want to be a COCOM staff member, because for the audience out there, Army regulation is policy. So having that knowledge, not only how to research policy, interpret policy, but then also contribute to policy, because members of OTSG staff at the Office of the Surgeon General, they own some of our Army regulations, and they have to provide policy updates to the force, and it needs to be nested with other Army regulations, and it needs to make sense. So I'm taking that a step further because it just goes to show how this foundation of education can take you so many other places potentially. I also love the fact that your program really gets into statistical analysis, because we are in a very data-driven time, and we are also in a great time of change, and the ability to take data and to make analysis, to seek out trend analysis is integral to our commanders making decisions across the battlefield and making enterprise-wide decisions as well. And the other thing that you mentioned with the regards to the project management, I mean, in my personal view, I think there's aspects of project management in every organization. We just don't do it. And I think we would have a lot more time on our hands and a lot less reactive nature in some of our organizational processes if we really implemented project management. So thank you how you broke that down in those three categories. I hope you don't mind that I piggybacked on you a little.
No, you're helping reinforce what I'm saying and then putting your spin on things, which I think is great. I can be really entrenched in this, so it's great to hear that you agree with some of our initiatives because we do work really hard to provide value to the field, and I really think we're doing an excellent job of that.
So I would be curious what it's like being a professor in the program. And obviously, you have a great passion for it. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about being a professor at the Baylor program.
It's a blast, honestly. It's a lot of work. And I know most Army jobs are, right? So, oh, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of work because I am so passionate about it. And so the more it's almost like a job where I can't stop thinking about it essentially. And so I'm always thinking about ways to improve and how we can do more for the students. And I'm surrounded by people who believe in that as well. So it's not an easy position to get. I mean, going through a PhD is harrowing. And I had to do mine during COVID, which had its additional challenges. And so people really that make it through that and come here, we really believe in what we do. And it's that pushes me to work hard and to be better. And we ground ourselves in the tenets of teaching, service, and research. And so it's three categories that we try to remain proficient and keep our skills up in, which is challenging, but we're also preparing students for a challenging and dynamic world landscape. Our healthcare system is complex. We have a new mission set in the military of the last few years where we're changing to dynamic changes across the globe and thinking about large scale combat operations and things like that. So we have to stay up to date on what's going on in the military, in academia, in healthcare, politically. It's a tall task, and we wouldn't do it if we weren't incredibly passionate about it. So our turnover can also be crazy because it's the military, but there's a pro to that in that we are constantly evolving, and our faculty come in with their PhDs. We stay current, we stay innovative, we bring in a lot of great ideas that we pass on to our students, and we're a constant touch point for alumni that have gone on to be successful at the strategic level. So they're a big part of our curriculum, and I got to come back and continue to be exposed to that. And it's just really inspiring. It makes me work hard to be a better officer and administrator and a human being. So it's awesome. Being at the Medical Center of Excellence is a very cool opportunity that I recommend to everyone.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing your passion on this. So I'd be curious, since you have worn both hats, what are your tips for success in this program?
I think anything that you do, any assignment that you get in the military is to work hard in everything that you do and come to this program with what you have and play to your strengths, but also understand and be aware of your weaknesses and lean on students in the classroom that might be better at things where you might be weak. And we always tell people that one of the biggest perks of coming to our program is not necessarily what we teach you, but who you get to work with and the experience that our students come in with. Like I said before, we have clinicians, we have colonels that are clinicians that come in on our executive clinical track. And as a junior officer, I was the youngest person in my program when I went through in 2015. And I was great as a company commander. I excelled in that position, but then you're put into a classroom of everybody excels in their positions. And so you really have to have, I think, some humility, a little bit of emotional intelligence and self-awareness, and know who you are and how you're going to operate under stress. But leaning on the peers that you get to be exposed to in that classroom is incredibly valuable. So lean on them, make study groups, challenge each other, challenge the professors, ask tough questions. We love that. It pushes us to be better as well. And this is not an easy program, but what makes it difficult is what makes it so great. Also acknowledging that it's a small world and it's a great place to get exposure for yourself and follow your heart and follow your passions. I'm intermingling some things here, but it's a really positive place to be, and you can really make a name for yourself for the future of your career by how you are at this program, how you do at your residency, and where you go. So like I said before, being an Army-Baylor graduate carries a lot of weight, and it matters. Take it seriously, and also recognize that even when it's difficult, you are part of something incredible, and that's pretty awesome.
No, those are some great tips for success. And I would say that some of those are great tips for success in any position you find yourself
Yeah.
in. So if you ever think you're alone on an island, then you aren't really playing to some of these tips. And that is that whole aspect of leaning on others. That really truly touches a personal note for me, because so I had the unique experience of going to naval postgrad for my last master's degree. And I will tell you, I was terrified at the level of smart people that I was surrounded with. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you said, it's everyone is just phenomenal. And it was very humbling, but the power there was us coming together as teammates. And like you said, knowing your strengths and knowing your weaknesses, but then also not being shy about admitting, hey, I'm not good at this, or I don't know how to do this. Do you mind helping me through this or coach me through how you do this better? It really does help you be successful. So yeah, you touched on a personal note there. So I thought I'd just share a little bit. So thank you for those great tips. Now, you mentioned earlier that sometimes the students, when they graduate, can go on to be deputy commanders of administration at the medical treatment facilities. But what other types of utilization tours can the graduates end up going into?
Yeah, so our graduates typically in the 70 alpha realm, and then even some of our other specialties will do 70 alpha utilization assignments. This usually depends on the consultant and the branch and the needs of the Army at that time. But the typical 70 alpha or Army-Baylor equivalent utilization would be a managed care division chief or a clinical support division chief. You can also be a hospital executive officer. Sometimes we do go into field units, but it's usually about getting into that hospital environment so that you can be a chief of some sort for those administrative departments, because you're essentially a mid-level careerist in the field of healthcare administration at this time. But you can also do the executive officer thing. There are some lower level deputy commander for administration jobs that we might sometimes put graduates in. Business operations is another place, administrative officers across the different service components. So there are some people that essentially, if you're at a military treatment facility for your residency, you're likely to transition into one of those positions at the facility that you're at. So we have department chiefs working on running the operations of the hospital, generally, is what you're going to do.
No, I appreciate you breaking that down. I appreciate the fact you said it depends on the Army's needs, because the reality is that we can't send people to authorizations that aren't validated assignments based off of the Army's needs and manning guidance, and what Human Resources Command ultimately says, like, okay, these have been validated to fill. So I appreciate you making that note, because there are times where officers might not necessarily go right into those positions. It's an ideal world, and that's what we strive for. But like, I know for us, and when I say us, in my AOC, 70 kilo, we have officers that we send to like our strategic enablers for medical logistics, because we see that as that's where that policy aspect meets that statistical analysis aspect, that project management aspect, where they could really utilize those skills in the lack of getting them assigned directly to a medical treatment facility. So
Yep.
thank you for bringing that up. All right. So it has been a great. I've learned some things today that I did not know
Yeah.
about Army-Baylor.
Awesome.
And if I would have talked to you earlier in my career, I probably would have put my name in the hat for the program. So it's a fantastic opportunity, and I appreciate you reaching out to share this unique opportunity. Now, let's shift over and have some fun together. So,
Okay.
first fun question for you. What's the best career advice you've ever received or given?
I would say that the best advice I've received, I'm going to amalgamate some advice because it turned into exactly what I tell other people. First off, it's a small world, it's a small army. People will speak about you in rooms that you're not in. So make sure that they're saying positive things. That's something I was told early on, and we all make mistakes. And now I know it more than ever because a lot of the opportunities that have opened up for me are because of conversations that I'm not part of about me. And so, for right or wrong, you want those to be positive conversations. I would give myself, oh gosh, I wrote so many things. Okay. The Army will ask you to sacrifice. So yes, you will fulfill those sacrifices because that's what we do. But in turn, take every opportunity that the Army gives you. You don't always have to take the same path that everyone else does. You should pursue what you love. You should pursue your passions. I've been given advice from people who followed stereotypical careers that they were advised to, and they regretted it. So if opportunities open up, take them. You don't have to have the stereotypical career. Some people, when I was younger, told me not to go to school. They told me not to pursue education because it might hurt chances of command later down the line. I'm glad that I didn't listen because I've been given so much opportunity by the Army. I'm grateful for everything that has come my way, and it has set me up for success. I really enjoy what I do, and it makes me see at this point in my career, almost 15 years in, that sticking to your convictions and maybe sometimes not taking no for an answer can really work out. So I've had some unconventional successes that they're because people encouraged me to follow my heart, and I feel good about that. And it means that I'm happy where I am now and I love what I do. And I think doing well at your jobs is easier when you're happy, and that's ultimately what gets you promoted, right? And that's ultimately where you can be the best leader and make the most positive impact on those that work for you and under you. And I think we need that more than ever. So that advice. And then the last thing I would say is this one is something I've learned more recently is be patient with yourself. Don't rush. I think I've wasted a lot of energy in my career feeling like I didn't know enough or I wasn't good enough to be in the role that I was in. I've compared myself a lot to other people when I really just needed the experience on the job. And I wish I had enjoyed my time and enjoyed the journey a little bit more. So know that you're enough. And I know that striking the balance of that can be difficult because being hard on ourselves is ultimately what also makes us successful. But just try to consider that if you're thinking that maybe you're not good enough or not working hard enough, because you probably are.
Well, thank you for sharing that wonderful advice. And I don't think I've met an officer yet out there that has the identical career path to another. So
Yeah.
the reality is no one can do the path you did. And even if they tried, they actually might not be successful, like you said,
Yeah.
because they're not following their convictions. All right. So the last one. Tell us a fun fact about you. And if you don't know one, tell us your favorite ice cream.
Okay, I love the ice cream question. So, my fun facts, I love s'mores and banana ice cream. So, anytime I find s'mores ice cream, that is like the pint is being bought and it's being eaten like in one sitting because it's just the best. And because I love ice cream so much, I have to work out a lot. So, I really love doing triathlons. I'm always looking for other military people who do tries because they are so much fun, and I competed in my 8th half Ironman distance triathlon earlier this year, and I am excited to do more of those. So just have I love having fun and I love ice cream. So thanks for that prompt.
Well, I just learned a new thing. I didn't know there was banana ice cream. I'll have to try to find that. I've never heard of banana ice cream.
Oh my God, it's so good. Bluebell makes yeah, we're down in Texas, so it's Bluebell down here. And then when I was in Oregon, it's all about the Tillamook. Any Oregon people on here will know. Banana pudding, if you ever see it, you have to buy
Nice. Well,
it.
well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing not only your journey and your passion, but telling us more about this amazing Army program that's available out there. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much. This was a really fun opportunity. So thank you for what you do too.
Thank you for joining us. Don't miss the next episode of the Be All You Can Be MSc podcast. Subscribe now and join our vibrant community of ambitious professionals who are taking their careers to the next level. The opinions shared on this podcast are the personal opinions of the guests and the hosts. They do not reflect the official position of the Medical Service Corps, the Department of Defense, or the U.S. government.